All right, we're going to get into the Green Bay Packers 2025 preview, courtesy of Warren Sharp's breakdown. That's where all these nice little stats and charts and stuff. Go check out Warren Sharp's book. Go get you a copy of the PDF or the actual book, a big old thick book. Got great information in there. If you're a football junkie, this is the book for you. If you especially if you're betting on football this year, you're going to need this book. And it's not a sponsor of the show. I don't get paid for saying that. I just bring you guys good resources, and this is a great resource that I think you guys would benefit from. I certainly am going to be using this all season long. I can't get enough of this book. Sitting there in jury duty, I'm reading it, and people are like, "Oh, you studying fantasy football?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure, something like that." But yeah, we got the Green Bay Packers. One of the things going through this chapter, which we will go through, is just there's some crazy Jordan Love stats that makes you think he's the real deal if he stays healthy. It makes you think he's the real deal. Definitely not what I thought of him. Not that I thought he was anything like a terrible quarterback or anything, but we're talking like elite status. And I was kind of shocked by it. So we're going to get into that, see what the Packers need to do. Packers need to get they need their wide receivers to be just even a little bit more competent last year. You're going to be surprised when you see the numbers on how many drop passes and mistakes the Green Bay Packers wide receivers made last year. So we're going to get into all that. Boku says, understood, just checking in. Yeah, I know, buddy. I wish I could make it down there. Sucks you're going to miss it. Going to miss what? This game? What are you going to miss? What are you going to miss, grass guy? Not the show because you're here right now. But I can't believe we're heading into year 7 already, Matt LaFleur. Year 2 for Jeff Haley, or Jeff Hapley for the defensive coordinator, and year 4 for Adam Stinovich. Season win total for the Packers is set at 9.5 this year. They won 11 games last year, 11-6 record, playing it, which is impressive, playing in that gauntlet of a division. You know, you had Detroit and the Vikings with both 14. I think Detroit had 15. Either way, they both have at least 14 wins. Definitely next time. That's right. Next time for sure. Okay. One thing that we like to look at is net rest advantage and disadvantage on the season, which is huge for a lot of these teams. The Packers, 1, 2, 3, they play 4 games with rest disadvantage, and 1, 2, 3, 4 games with net rest advantage. So net, there is 0. There is 0 on the rest advantage and disadvantage. Tough way to start off the season, but I guess if you want to get Detroit at any point, I would have won them probably week 1 before they kind of mesh together, especially since they're kind of dealing with some injury bugs and whatnot. But they open up against Detroit and Washington. At least they both get those home in Lambeau. Then they're on the road against Cleveland and Dallas before an early week 5 bye. Then Patriot, what up, Patriot? Thank you for reposting that. Then coming off their bye, they take on Cincinnati. That's going to be a fun game in Lambeau. At least all these games, a lot of these tough games, they get home. Look at that. They get Detroit home, Washington home, the Bengals home. They get the Eagles home. Well, obviously, they get Detroit and the Vikings home at least once. And then the Ravens. They get the Ravens home. So they have a tough schedule. Look at that. Out of division, you got Washington, Bengals, Eagles, and Ravens all at home. So that's looking good for them. Key players they lost to Daryl Slayton, lost him, Eric Stokes, Eric Wilson, Josh Myers, A.J. Dillon. Guy's still in the lead. Oh, they lost Andre Dillard too. Shout out Hiakoog. He was there. He was on my dorm floor, Andre Dillard. Lost him. But free agents they picked up a left guard, Aaron Blanks, paying that man $19.3 million a year. Nate Hobbs, cornerback, paying him $12 million a year. And then they got McCole Hardman, Isaiah Simmons, and Christian Welch. Drafted, they took, which I thought was a really good draft pick for them in the first round, number 23 overall. They took Texas's wide receiver, Matthew Golden. That guy has got speed, a lot of athleticism. people are nervous about how he's going to do up in Green Bay because he says I don't think he's ever been that far north and been in the cold like that. So, but this guy's a professional, right? He's a professional. He's going to learn how to play in the cold. But Matthew Golden gives them a wide receiver that will not make the mistakes that the receivers made last year, as we're going to get into, but also some speed and great athleticism out there. So we will see. And then second round, they took an offensive tackle, Anthony Belton out of NC State. Took another wide receiver. As you can see, wide receiver is a need for this team. So in the third round, they took another wide receiver, Savion Williams out of TCU. They like those Texas boys, huh? And defensive end Baron Sorrell out of Texas as well. They like Texas players in general. Look at that. And then a few more late round picks. But here, let's get into this. It doesn't seem like Jordan Love is entering his sixth NFL season, but he just completed his second season as Green Bay starter. He showed tremendous growth in his second season as a starter last year, helping to lead the Packers to 11-6 record despite battling injuries throughout the season. Yes. In a 5-point loss to eventual Super Bowl champs, the Eagles in week 1, with just 15 seconds remaining, Love hit simultaneously by two defenders, causing his knee to twist unilaterally. I remember that. They just paid him all that money, and then they thought he tore his ACL, but MRI confirmed ACL was intact. They initially estimated he'd be out 3 to 6 weeks, but Love returned to practice on a limited basis just 12 days later. And he only missed 2 games, and that was week 2 against the Colts and week 3 against the Titans. Good games to miss if you had to miss any. His absence was noticed in those 2 games. First, his toughness and competitive nature to return way before the estimated timeline speaks positively about his grit and commitment. Second, the staff's ability to turn on a dime. That is a testament to Matt LaFleur and his team. Your starting quarterback goes down week 1, and you got to be able to shift on a dime, right? And next man up. And they handled that very, very well. So after the preseason, they traded for backup quarterback Malik Willis. When Love went down, they got Willis ready for week 2. In week 1 against the Eagles, they led for 29 minutes and trailed for just 11 in the first 3 quarters. Despite leading for most of those first three quarters, they had a 61% pass rate on early downs. In week 2, they dropped from 61 pass rate to 11% pass rate because they had Willis there. You don't want to be passing 61% of the time with Malik Willis as your quarterback. And in the first half with Malik Willis, they only had a 7% pass rate. Oh, man. To give you an example of what Matt LaFleur pivoted to, Josh Jacobs had already cleared 109 yards on 14 rushes with 8 minutes and 34 seconds left in the second quarter. They were just run heavy. Run heavy in that game. The schedule gave them the ability to do almost nothing but creatively run the ball because the opposing offense wasn't putting up points on the board. Back to Love. He returned early from his knee injury and played week 4 against the Vikings. It was clear there was rust to shake off for Love because he didn't start well. The Packers trailed 28-0 in the first half. I mean, the Vikings just put on a clinic last year too. If there was blood in the water, the Vikings took advantage of it and exploited it. The Vikings' first 5 drives, touchdown, punch, touchdown. Packers' first 5 drives, missed field goal, interception, turnover on downs. Packers were lucky to recover a muffed punt with 39 seconds before halftime so they could trail 28-7. Okay, we don't need to go through every single game like that, though. This was interesting, too, to look at, which I haven't been paying attention to, but I am going to more so. Last year, they were 11-6, but the Packers were 8-8 against the spread here. So just something to take note of. Straight up record 11-6, but 8-8 against the spread. We got their ATS broken down as a home favorite. They were 4-3. Just little nuggets like that maybe. It doesn't mean anything for this year, but just kind of keep an eye on. Just another data point for us to use going forward. Packers win total is 9.5 this season, and they're favored in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So they're favored in 13 games. A lot of these are minus 1.5 point favorites. So, but they're favored in 13 games, yet their season win total is set at 9.5. What is Vegas trying to tell you about this team? Majority of my play calls would be run if I had Josh Jacobs. Dude's a monster. Yes, he is. Yes, he is. Nevada Maverick, do you bet preseason? Yes. Yes, I have been. Broke even yesterday. Day before, it was a beautiful day. Beautiful day. Despite a furious comeback, the Packers lost that game. Okay, we don't need it. And then they had to fly out to LA, take on the Rams. Love didn't look like himself early in the game. The Packers went 1-8 on third down, but they left with a win. By week 5 against the Cardinals, Love started to look like his knee was feeling better, which makes sense considering that was 4 weeks after his initial injury. After reeling off 3 straight wins, Love injured his groin in week 8 and led the Packers to a win over the Jags. Love exited the game in the third quarter and did not return. He didn't practice on Wednesday, but got in limited work in the week and was listed as questionable for week 9 against the Lions. Love played through the groin injuries, but the Packers lost to Detroit, and their record now was 6-3 on the season. This is where it starts to get interesting about Love. So pre-bye, Love was dealing with multiple injuries that both caused him to miss games, but also play injured while dealing with a separate MCL and groin injuries. Post-bye, he practiced in full each week, wasn't injured, and never missed a game. So pre-bye, he was minus 0.01 EPA per attempt, 44% success rate, 7.8 yards per attempt, and 61 completion. Post-bye, when he was healthier and didn't miss any time, plus 0.2 EPA per attempt, 49% success rate, 8.5 yards per attempt, and 65% completion rate. From those rankings prospectively, he went pre-bye number 21, 17, 12, 32 in the league to post-bye number 5, 9, 2, and 17. So playing when he's healthy, playing like one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Keep in mind, post-bye, Love faced the NFL's number 5 toughest schedule of pass defenses last year. That's a key point, too. He wasn't doing against easy competition. If anything, his first half pre-bye was very easy with some of those teams that he played. And then this is also only his second season as an NFL starter. Love also showed tremendous growth from 23 to 24, specifically on early downs. He was superior to his 23 season in every key metric, including EPA, success rate, yards per attempt, and completion rate. This is what we should expect to see, but it's worth stating it for the record. While Love ranked top 5 in multiple key passing statistics last season when healthy, there's a lot of context that needs to be considered. It relates to errors from extremely young receiving core. This is where we get into blame the receivers, although I think it's warranted. But before we get into how you're going to be shocked about how bad these receivers actually were. James has got to go for lunch. Catch you later. Have a good lunch later, Jamie. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you on the next show. Okay. Season win total for the Packers 9.5. Here's why the argument why you should bet under 9.5 wins for the Packers in the 2025 season. While they were able to effectively convert on third down throughout the season, the Packers converted just 50% of their fourth down attempts, tied with the 49ers for the 23rd in this metric last season. They need to find more effective options on fourth down. The Packers survived 24 with the league's best injury luck when it came to their offensive line, with a full cast of starters playing together on 80% of snaps last season. Metrics like this are beyond anyone's control and are expected to decline after such a fortunate year. Dropped passes by receivers were a concern for Green Bay in 24, with 29 accurate passes falling incomplete, the 6th most in the league. They did add Matthew Golden in the first round and Christian Watson, expect to miss a chunk of the season as he recovers from his ACL injury last year. Green Bay needs more consistency from its receiving core. That's going to be key. Can their receiving core get it done for them? If you believe no, you should bet the under. Here's why you should bet the over 9.5 wins for the Green Bay Packers in the 25 season. Green Bay made the most of their front seven despite a relatively low blitz rate, just 17.3% of defensive plays, which ranked 29th in the league, stacking opposing quarterbacks 45 times, which is the 8th most, and earning the 2nd highest defensive EPA per dropback. The coaching staff showed good malleability last season, quickly changing the offense following Jordan Love's week 1 injury to keep the team on track with Malik Willis at quarterback. It was a great sign that suggests the coaching staff will be able to handle whatever comes in 25. Defense took a step forward in the first year under DC Jeff Hafley, finishing 5th in yards per play allowed and 6th in points per drive allowed. Xavier McKinney was a slam dunk addition to the secondary, and Green Bay went out and signed Nate Hobbs to help solidify the corner group this offseason. So, bottom line is, if you think the Packers can get better wide receiver play and their defense can stay even consistent to what they were last year, Packers should be a bet on team for you. What else we got? Well, now we get into the wide receivers here. The Packers receivers ranked number 1 in receiver error last season. I didn't even know this was a stat. What is receiver error? Yes, it includes drops, but also includes plays when the receiver lost control at the ground, near catches where they should have gotten both feet inbounds but did not, and when he fell or stopped running his route. Overall, 8% of the Packers' 24 pass attempts were not caught due to receiver error. 8%. That's crazy. The largest percentage of any team in the NFL. For another way to look at this is Jordan Love would have completed 22% more of his passes. Another way to look at it is 22% of his incompletions were due to receiver error. That's crazy. Imagine the Love stats if they didn't make all those errors or just cut the errors in half. That's the difference between winning and losing games. That was the highest rate in the NFL. The NFL average is 15%. But Love saw nearly 25% of his incompletions come as a result of receiver error. Packers had the top 2 worst receivers in errors this past year. The NFL average was 5.3% of incompletions due to receiver error. Think about that. The average is 5.3, and the Packers are at 8%. Jaden Reed ranked number 103 of 103 of qualifying players. Datavian Wicks was 102 of 103. That is bad. Reed's 14.7% of targets being incomplete due to receiver error was nearly 3 times the NFL average, and Wicks was at 13.2. Things were at their worst for Love on 3rd and 4th down. On those downs, 33% of Love's incompletions were due to receiver error. Think about it. They would have completed their 3rd or 4th down a third of the time or a third more of the time if their receivers weren't so incompetent. Do they still have Romeo Doubs? I'm not sure. Let me see. Depth chart, roster, depth chart. There we go. Yes, they still have Romeo Doubs. The NFL average just 14%. There was just one other QB higher than 21%, and that was Daniel Jones with the Giants receivers, causing 26% of his incompletion. See, it wasn't Daniel Jones, grass guy. It was his receivers. That's why Daniel Jones got fired. It wasn't him. It was his receivers' fault. Love was a full 7 percentage points worse at 33. Think about that. Daniel Jones and the Giants were at 26, and Packers, who had 11 wins, were at 33 on that. That's crazy. It was the worst rate for a QB since 2001. What was the impact of these errors? On 3rd and 4th down, Love lost 28.2 EPA due to the receiver errors. That is the most EPA loss for any QB since 2020. That's crazy. But those numbers dropped massively on 3rd down, largely as a result of receiver error. On 3rd and 4th down, Love ranked number 29 in yards per. Okay, we don't need all these. If not for receiver error, it would have been so. His completion rate was 52.6%, number 35 in the NFL. If not for receiver error, it would have been 68%, which would have been ranked number 2 in the NFL. Think about that. This isn't him throwing like terrible passes out there. This is his receivers making mistakes, not catching the ball, not getting 2 feet in, not running the right route. Which led me to wonder how Love did on just early downs last year, since 3rd downs were so problematic. On early downs, he was number 5 in EPA per attempt, number 8 in success rate, number 4 in yards per attempt. He ranked in the top 5 on valuable early downs by multiple metrics. Despite the injuries, despite his receivers leading the NFL in receiver error, despite playing the NFL's the number 6 toughest schedule of passive defenses. Think about that. Even though you got the receivers errors, he's dealing with injuries, he's playing against really good defenses, he's still ranked high, top 5 in the league, which is impressive. Love made 18 career starts before last season. In 24, he made 15 starts, which were career starts number 19 through 33. Went back and filtered out all quarterbacks since 2000 during their career starts of 19 to 33 to compare Love's second full season as a starter. Here's where Love ranks amongst 86 qualifying QBs since 2000. He's number 12 in yards per attempt, number 27 in success rate, number 34 in EPA per dropback. But on early downs, he ranks number 7 in yards per attempt, number 8 in EPA per dropback, and number 11 in success rate. In early downs, his 8.6 mark last season was only behind Kurt Warner, Jared Goff, Brock Purdy, Kirk Cousins, Russell Wilson, and Matt Schwab. Matt Schwab getting some love. Look at that. He ranked ahead of Romo, Rivers, Palmer, Mahomes, Stafford, and well ahead of Rodgers. Where Rodgers caught up was on third down in the second season of starting. Overall, across all downs, he had better statistics in his career starts, 19 through 33, than Love. This year, Love and the Packers get a slight reprieve in schedule as I expect them to drop from the number 6 toughest pass defenses face to number 16th toughest. Packers made moves to strengthen their offense via signing left guard Aaron Banks and tackle Anthony Belton in the second round. Also drafted 2 wide receivers, Matthew Golden, first round, Davion Williams in the third round. Green Bay needs to make a move because they will be starting the season without Christian Watson. During the Packers' final regular season against the Bears, Watson suffered a non-contact injury in his right knee. Oh, okay, it was the right, which I thought it was his ACL, wasn't it? Pretty sure. If you want to see their information about their draft class, it's all right there. More stats and charts. These beautiful charts. I love it. Like I said, if you're an NFL junkie, this is for you. This book is for you if you're an NFL junkie. Fantasy advice. I don't really care about that fantasy stuff. The defensive outlook. Green Bay's defensive front was strong in 24, allowing 4.1 yards per carry to running backs, which was 7th in the league, and 0.95 yards before contact, which is 4th in the league. TJ Slayton left in free agency, which is a concern as they look to repeat those run defense numbers, but the rest of 24 rotation is back. Kenny Clark is a standout of this group, finishing last season with 10 run stuffs, but surprisingly struggling to get after the quarterback. Toe injury he picked up in week 1 could have played a role in those struggles. Devontae Wyatt picked up the slack there, getting 5 sacks with a 13.5% pressure rate on limited snaps. Packers finished, this was impressive right here. The Packers finished 8th with 45 stacks and 13th in pressure rate. While those overall numbers are good, no one stood out as a pass rusher, and it was not the most consistent unit in the league. What else we got? Green Bay had, let's see. They were 3rd in the league in interceptions with 17. They had that success despite Jair Alexander playing in just 7 games for the second season in a row, and he was no longer on the team. Perhaps with that in mind, the Packers signed Nate Hobbs to a 4-year, $48 million contract in free agency. We'll see if they can make that work. See if they can. Look at all these. Red zone efficiency. Their stats on first down. They ranked they ranked number 4 in first quarter points. These are things that we need to know. Betting. Point margins. They're not a good second quarter team. Last year, they were minus 23 point margin in the second quarter. Something to think about. Especially if they win the first quarter, then we can look and be like, okay, we'll take the other team to win the second quarter. Red zone targets for wide receivers. Tucker Kraft was targeted the most, 15 times, followed by Tavion Wicks at 14. And Reed with 11, Romeo Dobbs with 11. It's funny that he went to Tavion Wicks so much, who had all those drop balls and whatnot in the red zone. Kept going to him, though. Kept giving him a chance. Packers have the 23rd easiest schedule. Another way to say it is the Packers have the 10th toughest schedule in the league this year. Let's see. Matt LaFleur provided an encouraging update on Watson's recovery, stating that the wide receiver is doing outstanding and appears to be ahead of schedule. But there is no specific return date. On the ground, Josh Jacobs made a big difference for the Packers, improving modestly in overall rushing efficiency, but massively in explosive rushing efficiency. He went from number 22 to number 3rd in the league. Wow. The Packers did improve defensively under DC Jeff Hafley, who returns in 25. Improved their defensive efficiency from number 26 in the league to number 16, but their red zone efficiency from number 29 to number 8. How about that? And this was all despite facing a much tougher schedule of offenses from 23 to 24. Let's see. One of the biggest factors for the Packers making an improvement 25 and taking the next step in the form of going on a playoff run must be to turn close games into wins. Last year, they were 5-5 in games decided by one score. 23, they were 6-5. We're talking 10 games in a year, the majority of their schedule resulting in coin flip games. And plus, we saw all those games when we were looking at the look-ahead lines. I mean, a lot of those games that they're favored in, they're only a 1.5-point favorite, which suggests it's going to be a close game. One of the ways they can do this is to improve fourth down decision-making. They ranked number 27 in go-for-it rate last year, going for it just 15% of the time on fourth down. Worse, they ranked 29 when examining how often a team should go for it. This was kind of crazy. In the last 3 years, they've had 31 attempts on 4th and 1. Of those 31 plays of 4th and 1, they converted first downs only 55% of the time. And this is where we're going to get into something funny here. And yet their own QB sneaks, if they do a QB sneak, they convert 80% of the time. So get this. The Packers can't get a 4th and 1. They're one of the worst teams in the league at converting 4th and 1, even though they have an 80% success rate on a QB sneak. Yet on 4th and 1, they hardly ever do a QB sneak. It's also funny because the Packers were the one that wanted to ban the tush push. They don't need to ban the tush push. They need to sneak the ball with their quarterback. That's what we're going to get into. They use a sneak on just 16% of their 4th and 1 plays, well below the NFL average of 24%. Instead of sneaks, they predominantly call passes on 4th down and running back runs. Let's see. So let's examine their calls. 14 called pass plays, 50% conversion rate. 8 running back runs, 37.5 conversion rate. 5 QB sneaks where they convert 80% of the time. Yeah, so they just need to do more QB sneaks instead of trying to pass the ball on 4th and 1. Get too cute out there. The Packers lobby to ban the tush push. They don't need to ban the tush push. Do you know how often the tush push converted on first down for the Eagles last year? 81% of the time. So the Packers on QB sneaks on 4th and 1 were converting almost the same amount as the Eagles were. The Eagles just do it more often. They simply need to stop making boneheaded play calls on 4th and 1, sneak the ball more often, and get aggressive. That's a head coaching decision, though. Last year, the Packers ranked number 2 in pre-snap motion usage on run plays. In 23, they ranked number 3 in pre-snap motion usage on run plays. Last year, they used motion ahead of 410 run plays, which was number 1 in the NFL. Did not use motion on 116 run plays, which was bad. So with motion, their runs were minus 0.06 EPA per rush, 39% success rate, and 4.8 yards per carry. If they don't use motion, it's plus 0.24 EPA per rush, number 1 in the league, 54% success rate, number 1 in the league, 4.5 yards per carry, number 13 in the league. Basically, they're getting too cute out there with all that motion. B. McGork says, I see Josh Jacobs' first TD winner or scorer in our future maybe a couple times. Yeah, maybe. They need to quit using motion, though. See, this is what the little nuggets you get out of this book. I would never thought about, like, oh, let's see how they do when they run motion or when they use motion and run plays and when they don't. That's why this book is amazing. Bottom line, the Packers need more consistent version of Love if they want to go to the next level. If that comes to fruition, they will pivot from a talented but erratic fringe playoff team to a legit Super Bowl contender. Oh gosh. Whether you isolate running back plays, or Jacobs runs, the story doesn't change. They're massively better when they aren't using pre-snap motion. In fact, no team sees their success rate drop more when using pre-snap motion than the Packers. Yet they use it number 2 most often, despite the number 1 largest decline in efficiency. That, I guess, that is a good thing too. If you start seeing the Packers using a lot of motion in a game, maybe that's how we take advantage of live betting. Betting against them live. I don't know. 3 quick hacks I can share with the Packers staff to boost their odds of winning games in 25. Go for it more often, QB sneak instead of getting cute on 4th and 1, and reduce motion before handoffs. Now let's dive into the Packers schedule a little bit. Short week road games are the worst type of games to have to play. Less time for coaches to prep, less time for players to heal and get healthy, and less time to install game plans. Teams hate playing these games, and it's for good reason. Over the last decade, teams in short week road games have won just 44% of these games and covered the spread 49% of the time. The mark is even worse if you exclude the 2020 season when road teams excelled without home field crowds. Excluding the 2020 season, since 2014, teams on the road with short rest compared to their opponent won 42.9% of games and covered just 48.3% of the time. Meanwhile, looking at road teams playing with extra rest, they've won 47.9% of the games and covered a whopping 54.7% of the times. That swing over hundreds of games in each sample is massive. This year, the Packers bear the brunt of the scheduling disadvantages. Green Bay is the only team to play 3 short week road games this year. So even though they're net, we looked at the beginning of this, the net, they have 4 games of rest disadvantage and 4 games of rest advantage. 3 of the disadvantage games are on the road. So they have short weeks 3 times this season. That's something to think of. Week 11, week 14, and week 16. No other team plays more than 2 short week road games. Good news for the Packers is they've outperformed the NFL average marks when playing short week road games. Since 2019, the Packers are 6-1 and 5-2 against the spread in these spots. Although last year their only such game was Minnesota week 17, and they lost outright against the spread. Only the Chiefs, who are 7-0, have a better outright performance than the Packers since 2019. So while being forced to be the only NFL team to play 3 such games in 25, at least the coaching staff has historically been able to pull these guys together to generally outperform expectations in these situations. Jordan Love has shown that he can play as a top 10 quarterback when healthy and supported. With off-season upgrades to the offensive line, new additions to the wide receiver room, and slightly easier schedule ahead, this team is better positioned than ever to take the next step. But unlocking their full potential requires more than talent and health. It will demand sharper 4th down decision-making, smart short yardage play calling, and willingness to abandon ineffective tendencies like the overuse of motion in the run game that held them back. These are fixable issues, and if the Packers can clean them up, they have the quarterback, the defense, and the infrastructure to make a real playoff push. The floor has risen, the ceiling remains tantalizing. In 25, it's time for Matt LaFleur and Jordan Love to prove they can reach it. That's the thing, though. I always get nervous about these coaches. Like, he does a great job. It's easier said than done, mapping all this stuff out. And maybe Matt LaFleur will learn from this. But, I mean, the guy's going to his 7th year at Green Bay. I kind of think these coaches are kind of stuck in their ways. Maybe he can prove me wrong. Maybe. I feel like more times than not, these coaches are stuck in their ways, and we're going to get Mott's. More of the same. More of the same from the Packers. But there you have it. That's the Packers 2025 season. I think the Packers, I mean, it's a tough schedule. Health, you never know about. But I think if I had to bet, I would take maybe a little future bet on Green Bay to make a run this year, either to win the division or to win the NFC. They've got the talent. Love is, by those numbers, is statistically a good enough quarterback to get it done. They just need improvement at wide receiver, which they addressed. They brought in some new guys, albeit they'll be young guys, so you never know. Their schedule is not favorable for them at all, but at least they do get their toughest games at home. They do have to play at rest disadvantages on the road 3 times on short weeks, 3 times this year, as we went over. No other team has to do that, but this team historically has proven that they can handle that. They're better than your average team when playing on short rest on the road, and that's due to coaching. And Matt LaFleur is still there, so I expect that to stay the same. It'll be how they handle those games, but also how they can handle. I mean, they got big games at home. Obviously, the Lions, Commanders, Bengals, Eagles, Vikings, and Ravens. Those are tough games, but at least it's in Lambeau, and Lambeau is still one of those stadiums that has home field advantage. So they can do that. I doubt we see a change in the pre-snap motion for run plays. Warren Sharp makes a compelling point in here that they are the worst team, one of the worst team when they run with motion and without the drop off. Without, they're one of the best running teams. With motion, they're one of the worst. But I think we're going to get more of the same. I don't think that's something that will change. I think they're just banking on their wide receivers, not making so many egregious mistakes like last year. So we'll see. But that is your Green Bay Packers 2025 NFL preview.